Welcome to the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. I'm Andy and I'm joined right now by SC. How's it going, SC?
Good brother, how you doing today? Here to ready to talk some Devy show programs and stuff. My bad.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So right now we're going to have a jam-packed episode. Before I hit the intro, we're going to talk about the college football playoffs, the Heisman race, and Portal Talk. So let's go with the intro. All right, SC, let's start with this jam-packed episode here. Big topic right now, the college football playoffs. So we have Washington versus Texas. I want to know three things with your thought process with this game. Who's the X factor? Who's going to disappoint? Who wins and why?
Yeah, man. X Factor, I think Worthy got on some crutches at the end of the game. So X Factor might come down to Donnie Mitchell. I think Washington's defense has shown some exposure, like they can get beat, right. And the Donnie Mitchell is a very nice and crisp route runner to me. That I think he could find the holes in between that defense to make some big plays for Texas to possibly get them out early. We know Washington could score very quickly, so Texas needs to get a lead and not get behind, because once they get up, they just keep rolling. Who will disappoint? Man, keep it on that same team though. It could be Quinn Ewers here. We could just see him not show out. You know, he did say he's coming back, or that's expected, and this is a game he needs to show out. Washington won their division undefeated. He'd had a loss this season, and this is a game where the media is going to be looking at him. If he goes out there and gets them to the national championship, that's big news for his draft stock, and we may actually see him say, "Hey, I'm going to turn around and go to the draft." Who wins and why? Man, I want to say UT. I love their defense, but I think Washington's offense is going to be too much. It's just going to be one of those years where it's the storybook, Cinderella story. The Pac-12 closed out and they're in the national championship, right? It's just a nice story there. But that Washington offense is too explosive. They have three good wide receivers: Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Romo Dunze. They have a nice running back. Michael Penix is in the talk for the Heisman. This is a huge game for them, and I think this is a reason why they show out and they win this game.
I think my X factor for the game is going to be Xavier Worthy. I think it's going to be more pre-game. We saw that injury. We saw he was on crutches. Is that a high ankle sprain? When I watched it and he grabbed his ankle, it looked like a high ankle. And those high ankles can take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, and that puts you right at that time frame. So, is he going to be able to practice? Or if he misses practice, does that mean Jonte Cook has to take that step up? Does AD Mitchell, does he have to take on a bigger role? So I think he's the X factor, but more so before the game of what's going to happen. Is he going to be able to make it back in time? Coach Sark after the game says it's not a big deal, but is that just coach speak? I mean, we don't really know. As far as the disappointment, I'm going to go with Romo Dunze on this. I think Texas will scheme a way to have the other guys beat them and not Rome. And so I think they'll probably shift coverage and shade coverage to his side, and they're going to make the other guys step up. Polk, McMillan, Bernard, even the run game with Dylan Johnson. And then as far as who wins, I'm gonna go with Texas. I think it might be a final possession type of a game, but give me Sark with a month to prepare. So I'm gonna go with them. And then we have Justin right now. Justin, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm in. Sorry, guys. I'm having major problems with my video, but I'm in.
All right, you're good. We're actually on the first topic right now with Washington and Texas. And so, since we have you right here, I want to know three things of your takeaways for the game. Who's the X factor? Who's someone that's going to disappoint? And who wins and why?
For me, the X factor I think is the Texas defense. I mean, if the Texas defense can shut down Washington's, I think that's the difference maker in the game. If they can't, I actually think Washington's offense is better than Texas's offense. I know that sounds crazy because I love Texas individual players, but I think Washington's offense is better. So that's the difference to me in that game. I feel like that game could go any way. It really can. I mean, that game is going to be so close. I think turnovers, and if Washington gets off to a hot start, I think it changes that whole game.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. And then we have the other game. We have Michigan versus Alabama, and same thing for you guys. I'll start with SC. In this game, who's your X factor? Who's going to disappoint? And who wins and why?
Man, I did originally think it was Michigan's wide receiver and Wilson, but I think it's Corum. Corum's been their guy all year. You know, he's got in the end zone. He's found a way to get in the end zone, and we know Alabama has a gritty defense, right? And this is going to be a game that can be the tell of two tales to see. Okay, is Corum really about it? Is he really the guy that can go out there and get them on the board? You look at all the games; he's getting 2, 3, 4 games with touchdowns, with 4 touchdowns and everything. Who will disappoint? Man, that I want to say Alabama's defense. I want to say this is a game where it just Michigan just looks so good, and I want to say Alabama's defense is going to hurt Alabama's offense in the sense that they're just going to let them run the ball with Corum, with Edwards, just let them get down and tire them out. They're going to take the field, they're going to take the clock. And this is a game where Michigan, JJ McCarthy has learned how to slow it down, learn how to play that game for them that it's going to hurt Alabama, and it's going to cost them some time on the field where they're going to be forced to try to score super quick. But that Michigan defense isn't something to sleep on. Who wins and why? I think this is Michigan's year, man. I really want to say that. I just think it's a great year for them. Alabama has showed that they can win. They went out there and beat the number 1 seed in Georgia as far as the defending national championships, which is a big win. And there's argument that Georgia should have been in as well. But Michigan has done it all year, man. They slowed down Marvin Harrison Jr. as far as just not letting him win. He had a good game, but they were able to shut down the Ohio State defense and just make it go, hey, this is our turn. They have a nice defensive end there in Jalen Harrell. They have a good defense all around. I think Michigan pulls this out, and it's going to be something like 20 points. It's not going to be a heavy score or anything like that. It's going to be like 20 to like 13. They're barely going to win, but a low scoring game, but they manage the clock and they win.
I gotta agree. Yeah, I agree. I think this is gonna be a Rocky Balboa, Apollo Creed death match. I feel like these teams are just gonna beat each other down. It's gonna be just back and forth, tough defense, run of the ball, a couple big plays make the difference maker. I think Michigan wins this game. I really do. I think they win this game, but I feel like it's old school football. I don't think we're in the 30s and 40s in this game. I feel like this is a 21, 17, 24, 21 game. I just feel like both these defenses are too tough. It's just going to be drag out of it's just going to be a street fight. It's going to be old school street fight. And I feel like Michigan, because I feel like they have a better defense and a better running game, I think that's going to make the difference in this one. I really do. I just think Michigan's defense is superior, and they're a team that knows how to rely on the running game. So when they get behind, they get down, they get in a tough spot, they don't freak out. They're like, hey, our running game is superior. We're just gonna keep pounding the ball. And that's why I trust Michigan on this. I think Michigan is going to win this game.
I am the resident Michigan homer, so we all know who, I'm going to predict to win. But I think the X factor is going to be JJ McCarthy. I think it's going to be a redemption time. Last year against TCU, he threw 2 pick sixes, and that cost him the game. So I think he's going to be the X factor. The disappointment, I'm going to say, is going to be Jalen Milroe. And the reason why is Michigan has a quarterback, Alex Orgy. He's the backup quarterback. He's like a bigger body. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", very mobile guy. He's going to run the scout team. So Michigan's going to have a month of him running scout and trying to find ways to stop Milroe on the run. And so I think they're really going to force Alabama to throw, and that's going to be, the ultimate factor there in that game. And obviously, I think Michigan's going to win. Now, with those four teams, the team that was left out is Florida State. And Justin, do you think Florida State was snubbed? Do you think they were deserving, even though they had a backup quarterback? Does the body of work matter more than just one player?
That's always a tough call. I think, going undefeated, I actually, at the beginning of the year, I took FSU to make the playoffs. Like, that was one of my bets. I had Michigan, just to put it out there, I had Michigan, Georgia, FSU, USC as my four teams that were going to make the playoffs. That was my bet early in the season. Obviously, USC, disaster. I just thought Florida State had a shot because I like Jordan Travis. I like the defense. Benson's one of my boys. I think he's really good. Oh man, the problem is, and we've seen this a lot of times, whenever you have a main guy get hurt, it just seems like it changes everything. And I'm an old guy, so I always look back at Kenyon Martin, Cincinnati, NCAA tournament. This is exactly what makes me think of that. Cincinnati, number one team in the country, absolutely dominating. Kenyon Martin breaks a leg, and they just drop Cincinnati because they're like, oh, Kenyon Martin, without him, Dunskies, which was true. They were done without him. And this is exactly what reminded me of that. They just dropped Florida State because they're like Jordan Travis. They're out without him. This is a terrible matchup. We want revenue, money, goods. I feel so bad for FSU getting dropped out. I feel so bad. But I feel like we also all know that they were going to get worked without Jordan Travis. I mean, we saw that Louisville game. And we have to be honest, Louisville's not good. Like, that's a team that has a better record than they should have. They're not that good of a team. And it sucks. I feel bad for the Florida State players because I feel like they crushed it this year, but they were going to get worked in the playoffs. They were. We all know it.
SC?
Yeah, man. Who did they get snubbed? I mean, yeah, they went undefeated, right? They won their conference outright, and you have a team that they did win their conference, but they have a loss in there. The difference is they did lose a huge player, and we've seen it time and time again where if your star goes down, you're going to get dominated, but this is a great game for them because they are still playing Georgia. So this is a prove us wrong type of game. Granted, next year they go into the 14 or the 12-team playoff, where you have 4 bye weeks. So it's just a prove us wrong. And I think they need to go out there and show that. Who got snubbed here is the Florida State defense because they held it down, right? And I didn't expect the offense to go out there and be anything great, but we needed to see that Florida State defense step up, and I feel they did. And that's who got hurt. We talked about like maybe a Jared Verse who came back because he wanted to win a championship. They just robbed this guy blindly. He went out there, performed. His team went undefeated, and they just straight up robbed him. by saying, nah, you're still not good enough because your quarterback's down. What? That's the crazy part to me. Business wise, though, it makes sense. I mean, if Jordan Travis is there, it's a whole different story. But you have your possible third string quarterback in there now. Is anyone gonna watch that game if they're going up against who would they play? Maybe they'd be playing Michigan. It'd be hard to do that. So I understand why the committee did it, but I mean, it would have been nice to see it. But hey, they need to prove us. They need to prove the world wrong to show, hey, we're gonna go out there and beat Georgia. And really, this is kind of a bigger statement, right? Because Georgia's the defending champ right now. So you go out there and beat them before the actual national championship. It's like, yo, look, we just beat the guys that won 2 years back to back, and you kicked us out. This is on you, committee. Um, It'll be fun to watch. I really want to see Trey Benson against this team. He's my RB1 after some news broke earlier today that we'll talk about. But he's someone that I think is a great running back, a good one-step running back, just makes that one cut and is gone. It'll be nice to see him against a tough Georgia defense. This is going to be the toughest defense he faced all year. So this is really going to show what we want to see as far as what he can do in the pros, I think.
And then as we do focus on Georgia now, I do want to just bring attention that Keon Coleman could opt out. Trey Benson also could opt out, and Brock Bowers may as well opt out. So those are three names to watch to opt out in this game. But with Georgia, what I want to kind of talk about is that we knew that Kirby Smart wanted to go back to the old ways of they want to run the ball, play defense, win that way instead of throwing the rock all around. Are they hindering themselves? And I'll start with you, SC. Now, we we know that they are a team that is loaded with running back and tight ends, and they kind of focus on those two positions. With their wide receiver group, they aren't very strong. And when we take a look into next year, if they do lose Lad McConkey to the NFL, their highest recruit coming in is wide receiver number 89, ranked 539 overall. Their big portal guy that they got last year was Dominic Lovett. Coming in, they have the RB2, the RB10, and the RB17 of the 24 class. They also bring back Roger Robinson and Branson Robinson. With Georgia, do they have to get a receiver to help Carson Beck, or do you think they'll just continue to roll out the running backs and then roll out their new tight ends that they're going to have next year?
Do they have to get a wide receiver to help Carson Beck? Yes. Do they necessarily need a receiver for that offense? No. Like you just hit it all on the money. They're stacked at that running back and tight end where they don't need someone to necessarily stretch the field as long as those running backs are healthy and they're actually all moving. I'm one of the biggest Branson Robinson supporters. I can't wait to see this kid on the field. He was a monster coming out of high school. He's just been plagued with injury and the depth chart, right? So you have Brock Bowers leaving, who's tight end one of the class, possibly a top 15 pick maybe. But then you have Oscar Delp right behind him. You have Pierce Spearlin right behind them. So you have these guys that can be playmakers. They just I think they need to try to hit that transfer portal. We have some good guys in the portal right now. We're probably going to see some more. It's hard for them to scout, I feel like, after they did just lose to Alabama. It's just really going to put Alabama back into that number one for the conference as far as recruiting, I feel like. So it's an opportunity that they need to go out there and get some guys in the transfer portal. They lost A.D. Mitchell last year, and that was a huge reason that was a huge reason that they just struggled, I feel like. I mean, we see what he's doing in the Texas offense. That's big for them. He was a big receiver for them. That was kind of underrated, I feel like. And it showed that they really had a lack of core there. And that's probably why he wants to get out. He's like, I'm not really growing to my full potential here, so let's leave. They're gonna still run, but they had to hit that transfer portal, I think, to get a solid wide receiver. And then we might see Carson Beck unlock a little bit. He looks great for what he is, but he's a game manager. I want to see this arm go full strength, get that guy that's a field stretcher that you can throw it deep, and then you're gonna, just see those yards stack up for him as well.
And then Justin, who do you have winning the Heisman? Now, the four finalists are Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Bo Nix, and Michael Penix.
Well, I got on a little bit of a fight this morning on the X. I like Marvin Harrison. I'm a guy who I think the best player should win, and I know that's not how the Heisman works lately. Everybody's like, "Hey, whoever has the best stats wins," and Jaden Daniels has the best stats. So Jaden Daniels and most people mind should win the Heisman because he has the best stats. To me, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in college football. He put up almost identical stats across the board as a junior after he put up the same stats with Shroud as a sophomore. Stroud was a sophomore. Shroud was amazing. I love him. Great quarterback. Turns around, McCord is his quarterback. He puts up the same stats. Everybody hates McCord, thinks he's terrible. To me, you put up the exact same stats. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the Heisman winner. I think he is. I've got a lot of hate on that. Everyone's like, hey, he should not win it. He didn't have the greatest stats. Neighbors had better stats. Other wide receivers had better stats. But I'm also a person who doesn't think that the Heisman should be 100% locked in on stats. Because we've seen a lot of guys win the Heisman that, let's be honest, had no business winning the Heisman over other players. So for me, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. I've got a lot of hate today on the X about it, but to me, he is the best player in college football.
We have a comment here from Cody Folden. You can argue Neighbors made Daniels stats. So Neighbors was better for Daniels than Marvin Harrison Jr. was for McCord. Neighbors for Heisman. SC, we both are in agreement that the LSU receivers propped up Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
Who do you have winning the Heisman?
I think the flash will show Daniels right, but I mean, I'm gonna have to go with Michael Penix. I mean, what he's doing, I'm. It hurts me saying that because Bo Nix is in there, and I want to see Bo win. But the fact is, he didn't win out when he needed to. The two losses he has on the season is against Washington. Both are by 3. That hurts more than kind of a blowout because he couldn't get his team down there. I mean, they missed a field goal in the first one, and he couldn't score when they needed to. He relied on the kicker, and that's okay. You've seen Tom Brady do in the Super Bowl, right? But he couldn't score when he needed to. He couldn't make that crunch time and just take his team down the field to guarantee that victory. So Michael Penix goes out there and does it. An undefeated team, had a phenomenal year. He took his team to the playoffs. He's someone that you're watching in the playoffs because of him. It's some more excitement there because his offense is just high flying with him, and it's not really the wide receivers are making him because he's throwing it on the money. He's showing his NFL arm, and he's showing it all across the field. He's not just feeding 2 guys like Daniels is with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors there. You know, and Bo Nix, again, had a great year, a better year statistically than Michael Penix, but he just didn't win when it matters. And when I want to see the Heisman, I want to see, okay, who made the difference for the team? You take out Michael Penix of that team, that Washington isn't where they're at right now. I think he's that difference maker. I think Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks still have a nice running game. Jaden Daniels, I think any quarterback right now, put him back through with Ryan Thomas and Malik Neighbors, can go out there and ball out. Benefit Daniels has shown some quickness with his legs and expanding the playing game out of the pocket when he needs to and getting some rushing yards. But was that really him, or was it he just playing some bad defenses at that time? Marvin Harrison, phenomenal, great prospect, great wide receiver. But it's going to go to one of the quarterbacks that have their team in the playoffs right now. And guess what? Out of these, it's only one of them, Michael Penix in Washington.
All right. Let's move on to the main course now. Portal talk. It's been the talk the past 2 days, and let's go right to the quarterbacks. We're gonna start with our freshmen first. The first one that I want to talk about is Dante Moore. Now he is entered into the portal. It was stated that he wanted to go somewhere and essentially be coached and developed. Per Pete Nakos from On Three, Dante Moore and Michigan have been in touch since he entered the portal Monday evening. Is Dante Moore a shoe-in to Michigan, or does Oregon have a chance to still get him? He was previously committed to Oregon. Does Florida State have a shot to get him? SC, where do you think Dante Moore eventually ends up?
I do like Michigan. I mean, I think he saw what they did with JJ McCarthy. I feel like JJ McCarthy wasn't top five quarterback for some going into the season, but I feel he's arguably the QB2 of this draft class because he went out there, he led the team, he showed how to manage the game, and for me, that's something I feel Dante Moore missed at UCLA, and that's why he entered that transfer portal after his freshman year. They benched him, brought him back. I just feel that's bad coaching. You just really, it's you're like, all right, you don't have what it takes. Actually, you're better than these other quarterbacks, though. So let's put you back in. And it's like you just lose that trust there. So I feel with them, he showed they can go out there and develop a quarterback. You do have Alex Orji there, as you have mentioned as well. But Dante Moore is a talented kid. I really like Michigan as an ideal for him. Florida State would be great too. But I just feel Michigan he sees as the front runner, the champion right now. I mean, they've been doing it all year. They have a nice defense on the side too, something he kind of had at UCLA there with Leatu Latu. So he's got to go there and just love to be one of the guys in the Pac-12, or excuse me, Big Ten. It's not going to be the Pac-12, but you have Oregon and Washington joining. So, hey, what better to go to an opposite team and be on the team that you decommitted from and say, hey, y'all really messed up here by letting me walk.
Justin?
Yeah, for me, I just think Dante Moore has seen what JJ McCarthy's done at Michigan. And to me, that makes a huge difference. Like, you don't have to put up 5,000 yards passing to be a big time quarterback. You just need to be in a good system. And you need to be solid, know where to throw the ball, do what you need to do. I actually think this is a perfect spot for Moore. I actually think it's great for Moore. If JJ goes to the pros and Moore goes to Michigan, I don't know if it could be any perfect. I mean, it's so perfect for him to go there. It just makes sense to me all around. I think he's the type of guy that works at Michigan. I really do. I just think JJ has shown a lot of kids. In my opinion, he's shown a lot of people, hey, you don't have to put up 5,000 yards to be an NFL quarterback. You just need to really be great at your craft and show that you can do what is asked of you. And I think there's a lot of guys who always think like, hey, I got to put up 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns to make the NFL. And I don't think that's the case. And I think JJ in Michigan proved that this year. Because I think he's a first round quarterback. Andy, I think you've said that nonstop, that you think he's a first round talent. I think he's a first round talent. And if I was Deontay Moore, I'd be like, this guy didn't throw for 1,000,000 yards yet. He's a first round quarterback. I want to be on a team that's winning and can make me a first round quarterback no matter what. So to me, if I was a college quarterback like Dante Moore, I would be all over going to Michigan. I would
I
be
think
all over that.
I think with Dante Moore, I kind of wrote up my piece today where I said he would be best to be kind of like a point guard where he doesn't have to win you a game, just distribute the ball, get you ahead of the chains. And I think that with Michigan's defense, it would put him at a spot to succeed and win. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. The next freshman that we want to talk about, SC Aiden Childs. Is he a shoe into Michigan State?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the coach left there and he's going there. I mean, Oregon State, we saw this coming in when it was announced, Pac-12 is just leaving, that a lot of these athletes were going to leave. And with the head coach leaving there, the one that scouted and drafted, or I say drafted, but recruited Aiden Childs to Oregon State, going to Michigan, he's simply saying, hey, man, I got a spot for you. I need a quarterback. I want you to be it. DJU was, the quarterback there for Oregon State, but I truly believe Aiden Childs is better. I think he's a nice prospect to look at. He knows how to run just kind of flawlessly, how to escape that pocket and get the pressure. He doesn't really lose confidence when that pressure is getting to him, and he has a nice arm. He can get the wide receiver open, but he also scouts out the entire field. He's not throwing on that first read or anything. I think it's guaranteed he's going to Michigan State. It's just a matter of time. We have to go through transfer portal, all that kind of stuff. It can't just be, hey, man, come with me, I'm leaving. Okay, so there's just paperwork that needs to be fine-tuned, and we'll see him at Michigan State pretty soon, I believe.
Justin, this morning, word broke that Kyle McCord is transferring from Ohio State. And a couple of hours ago, it was noted that he was going to be meeting with Nebraska offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield. Is Kyle McCord a good fit for Nebraska? And is Nebraska a good fit for Kyle McCord?
Everything I saw said McCord wanted to not be in the Big Ten because he didn't want to fight and go play against Ohio State again. And then all of a sudden, Nebraska popped up. So it seemed kind of crazy. Nebraska, oh man, I don't know. They do not have a lot of talent right now. They just don't. I think Kyle McCord has gotten a bad rap. I mean, the fact that he went, 11-1 as a QB and is just getting dogged on, I feel really bad for the kid. I feel really bad because it's not like he played terrible at all. I mean, Illinois, Missouri, a million places, Syracuse, they would take Kyle McCord in 2 seconds. So I feel bad for him because everybody at Ohio State wants a national championship. They think they should. They get all the recruits. And just because he didn't beat Michigan, they're over him. So it's hard. I really think Kyle McCord is still a really good quarterback. I think he has room to grow. Nebraska would not be the place I'd go past Kyle McCord, though. I mean, I really wouldn't. I would look somewhere else. Hopefully, he has better options than Nebraska, but I have not heard much beyond that. But I think I think he's getting short sighted. He's a really good quarterback. He's a really good kid. He just didn't win the big game at Ohio State. I mean, that's what it comes down to. He did not win the big game at Ohio State.
I mean,
now, go ahead.
Just want to hop in. I mean, Nebraska, with McCord, he didn't move the ball as they wanted to, right? You had some premier wide receivers there, and it just didn't look as exciting to watch them as we want to. It was exciting when we saw Marvin Harrison get the ball because we knew he was going to do something. But McCord didn't really stretch it or anything like that for them. When he goes to Nebraska, though, he is going to have Malachi Coleman, who's a freshman that they didn't utilize a little bit this season. He had a couple passes caught, but Malachi Coleman's someone that can develop, and you have a veteran quarterback like Kyle McCord go there, could be good for this development of this young kid who right now is still at Nebraska. So it could be exciting to see. Nebraska desperately needs a quarterback, I feel like. So, he's been a contender. He knows what it takes, and maybe he becomes that turning point for them.
Now, with this portal, there's two thoughts with the quarterback. You either get a stopgap guy or you get a guy to build around. And Cam Ward is one of those stopgap quarterbacks. Now, supposedly he has over 10 offers with over $1 million each. He's been linked to Washington and Ohio State as being two of them. Justin, name me one school that would be his best landing spot.
This is something I've been thinking about for the last week. I'm like, where does Cam Ward actually fit well? And does it make sense? doesn't make sense where he's going. I like Cam Ward's ability. I like the way he runs. I like his passing ability. But it's like I, I'm actually one of the people I feel like is a little bit down on him. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's really good. I'm gonna lie on that. But I feel like everyone's like, oh, if he just went to another school, he would be amazing. And I'm not so sure about that. So I've heard him linked to Ohio State. I've heard him linked to a bunch of Big Ten schools. I've heard him linked to, constant people are like, oh, transfer portal, he's in there. I don't know. I'm really confused on him. I actually want to hear what you guys think about him because I like Cam Ward a lot. I think he has talent. I thought Washington State was a really good landing spot for him. And the fact that he is leaving Washington State to go somewhere else is kind of surprising. I just don't know where he goes better. I've heard people say Ohio State. I've heard people say other times. I'm like, do you think he's that much better than who they have? I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, where will be great for him? Ohio State. I mean, you have the wide receivers there. He's someone that has that cannon arm. He was off to a great start this season. He was over 70% completion at the beginning of the season. He was throwing for 3-4 touchdowns in the games, and then they kind of just took a huge dip when they played against UCLA. They lost that game, and then they just hit a losing streak, and it just looked ugly for him. The biggest thing is he needs the proper development, right? He needs a coach that's going to take their time with him, show him how to fine tune the little things. My comp to him is really Jameis Winston, someone that you just see say F it and throw it up in the air. I feel I see that a lot more than him rather than, don't get me wrong, it's good to play jackpot sometimes, but sometimes you just need to make the bet just to double down, right? Just to get that next yard and everything like that. And sometimes I feel like he wants to make that big play. Ohio State would be great, but I'm gonna go out there and throw Oregon. Why not Oregon? You have someone that has an explosive offense, that has great wide receivers. We have Jerry on Dickey there, right? You're losing Troy Franklin. You need someone that's gonna be able to stretch that field for him. And I would love to see Cam Ward there because he's familiar with that type of offense. He's played against them. He knows how to just have that cannon arm and throw it deep for them. He's someone that could get there. Oregon has developed some great QBs in the past. We've seen Justin Herbert. Now we've seen what they've done with Bo Nix. Get Cam Ward there. Let him coach. Let him be coached. Let him learn. Let him develop. And, just fine tune those little things. And we may see him next year in the day 2. If not, maybe late first of the draft next year.
SC, you had mentioned Oregon. A quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, he was linked to Oregon earlier today, and it came out probably a couple of hours ago where USC was going to make a late push for him. Between USC and Oregon, with Dylan Gabriel, where do you see him fitting best at?
I think Oregon because there, I would love to see Cam Ward over him. I'm just a Cam Ward fan. But I think Oregon would be a better fit because he's not going into competition. They have Malachi Nelson there, right? A top prospect coming into last year's class. So Oregon, I don't see as much competition. They have Noah Set there, but Michael Van Buren actually decommitted. So you definitely know Oregon's going after a quarterback for that to happen. And I think what they saw, Caleb Williams is the 101, right? But we're seeing just a downfall at the USC. Didn't have that defense. They just couldn't get it done. The defense was horrendous. Oregon, on the other hand, their defense stepped up at the second half of the season and actually made some good plays down the stretch. So it's someone that he can go in there and be like, hey, I have a chance to take a team and win. We didn't see it happen with him at Oklahoma. Now he can go in there, be a Big Ten leader next year with Oregon, with a nice offense, with a nice running game, and continue to build up his repertoire as well.
Justin, USC was also reportedly having met with Will Howard. Do you think Will Howard's a good fit at USC?
Actually, was really surprised when I heard that. I'm like, okay, so I felt like all of us were like in the boat. Malachi Nelson was like the guy. Like, okay, we recruited him. He's the guy that's gonna back up Williams when he goes. And now they're saying, well, Howard. So to me, if you're a Devy person, that really worries me because I think that Lincoln Riley really wants Howard. I really think he does. And so that worries me for all my Malachi Nelson shares. Um, I think he wants him. I think and if he really wants him, I think he goes to USC. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you've turned in, Caleb Williams to a Heisman Trophy winner to a possible 1-1 overall pick. If you're Howard, you're going there. Why would you not? And to me, that really, really worries me about Malachi Nelson that they don't think he is the guy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, as far as with Malachi Nelson goes, he did have off-season shoulder surgery, and it kind of slowed him down. I mean, with them looking at these quarterbacks, it is a concern. I'm not gonna say it's not, but one thing that I want to throw out there, just food for thought. Lincoln Riley went 7-5 this year. They had hopes of making the college football playoffs. Perhaps Lincoln Riley just wants a super senior so that he has an experienced quarterback so that they just keep winning so he doesn't get fired. That could also be another reason. And with Malachi Nelson, this will be his redshirt year. Next year, he gets a sit behind. That'll be his redshirt freshman year. And then he'll possibly have the job his sophomore and junior year and still head off to the NFL. Now, an interesting report is that Will Rogers was crystal ball to Washington. SC, do you like that?
No, I mean Rogers didn't do anything really last year to impress me. Um, I am not too familiar with the receiving core outside of your top three right there, so I really don't know how Will Rogers goes in there. I mean, he's a senior, right? So it's like you're going in there. This is just that final year. I'm an Austin Mack fan. I think give that guy the range, and maybe it's Will Rogers there just to coach him because he's seen it. He's been in college for a few years now. But I think Austin Mack is the quarterback of the future for Washington, and he's someone that going a year after Michael Penix, let him take it. He saw what needed to happen, right? You're bringing in someone that had some missed some games last season. You're bringing in someone that had below 60% completion. He's not going to do anything to push the needle for me. And it could be one of those times where if he ends up going, where we end up just seeing Washington go from the very top to being, just a mediocre team.
I think there's two G5 guys that we should at least bring up, and that's DeQuan Finn from Toledo and Taylor Green from Boise State. Both of these quarterbacks have played well, and as far as the CFF asset goes, DeQuan Finn has been amazing. Now he looks to transfer up. I'm interested to see where he goes. I do think he's a Power 5 level quarterback. I would like him to go to NC State with, pair him with Kevin Casey Concepcion. And with Taylor Green, it was a little bit of a disappointment this year. There was a lot of buzz around him. He ended up actually losing his job, but only got it back due to injury. Now, let's move to the running back position. And this broke probably 30, 45 minutes before we were about to hit the airwaves. Rocket Sanders is in the portal. SC, where do you think he goes? Is it Florida State because he's from Florida? Does he go to Ohio State? Travion Henderson, Mine Williams are gone. Does he go to USC with that open offense? Does he go to Oregon, take over that Bucky Irving role? Where do you like him to go?
I would love to see Florida State just because I saw what they did with Trey Benson, but I think he's more of a Ohio State runner, just one that gets between the tackles very nice, and he has that explosion. But to me, I feel he lost that step, so I feel he doesn't necessarily need to get that step back if he's there or Ohio State because they can know how to just manage the clock and know how to get it down. Plus, they always have a plethora of wide receivers that can kind of take that pressure off for him. Where I feel he went to Florida State, they're going to try to pound the rock with him. He is that type of rock, that running back that can do that. But with his injury concern, I don't really need to see that. I need to see a couple good games, but I don't need to see him every down or every game getting 15 carries a game. I just need to see 10 to 12, see that he still has that juice in him. I think Ohio State could be that better fit because he's not going to get that wear and tear, as we're kind of already seeing that he has some of that. So that's kind of concerning to me, but I think that could be a difference maker for him. Plus, Ohio State's arguably a contender, right? So it'll be nice to see him there.
Justin?
Yeah, I said this earlier. I think he would absolutely kill if he went to Missouri. I know it's a crazy idea, but Cody Schrader has crushed in this system. And Rocket Sanders is, let's be honest, about 100 times better than Cody Schrader. Like, let's be honest, he's way more talented. If you put him on Missouri, it would be insane. It would be insane. So, I mean, that would be my hope, my dreams as a Missouri fan. But I think he could go a lot of places. I there's a lot of where I think Ohio State actually makes 100% chance for him. If Trayvon Henderson left, he goes to the pros. I think Sanders to Ohio State makes 100% sense. You know, he goes there. That team is loaded. He crushes there. It makes sense. So he could go a lot of places. I think if he goes to Missouri, he absolutely murders and is like the number one running back in the country just because their system. If he wants to go to a bigger program, I understand it. Ohio State makes total sense to me if Trayvon Henderson leaves.
We have Tommy checking in here. He thinks it's going to be Florida State. That's a pretty good place. SC, you like him to Florida State too, or in Ohio State. I don't know. I think it's tough. I think Oregon is a fun place for him to go to. With that open offense, and we've seen what Bucky Irving has done. I think that would be exciting if he were to go there, but I do think Ohio State makes a lot of sense, but we are seeing a mass exodus at Ohio State, so who knows? And then, of course, you can always go to Michigan. Blake Corum doesn't have any more eligibility. Now, let's move on to George Pettaway.
The 80s, like, hey, let's just go to Michigan. Let's go to Michigan. It makes sense. Let's go to Michigan. He actually would kill in Michigan, let's be honest. He would crush in Michigan.
Now let's talk about George Pettaway. When he was recruited to North Carolina, he was recruited by Phil Longo, who's now at Wisconsin. George Pettaway was supposed to be the Michael Carter to Amarian Hampton's Javonte Williams role. Braylon Allen's gone. Is George Pettaway a good fit at Wisconsin?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can be. He's someone that I'm just trying to pull up my notes real quick on him. He's someone that I wanted to see that 1-2 punch of him and Hampton, and we just Hampton just ran away with it. To be fair, that'd be crazy.
Rocket and Ward at OSU.
That would change that
fucking Ohio State. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Pettaway, with Wisconsin, with them possibly losing Braylon Allen to that draft, he's leaving. Definitely a good fit. I think he's a guy that can get between the tackles for you. He's someone that can get down, shoulders down, run the ball, run the rock the way they want to run it. But he showed some good hands in high school as well. So he's someone that could be a 3-down back for them. And he did the best move for him, which was transfer, because like what Katron Allen should do, honestly, or even Nick Singleton, because it's just eating into both of them where they can both sign separately. And I think Pettaway's going to show, look, y'all should have used me correctly because maybe I would have stayed and just helped this North Carolina offense. But now you're going to lose me, and now you have to just worry with Amarian Hampton there.
Yeah. Let's move on to the wide receivers. There's some 3 freshmen that I just want to quickly mention. London Humphreys had a great season at Vanderbilt. He's rumored to go to Georgia. That would be a good get for Georgia and for Carson Beck. Rico Flores, he led the Notre Dame trio of freshmen in receiving. He went into the portal. He's someone that could be nice for like a slot type guy. And then TCU, Cordell Russell, he's a big time athlete, really raw. We've seen TCU have back to back big time recruits, leave after a year. So those are three freshmen that have entered the portal that were, pretty good recruits. Now, Justin, Juice Wells, it was a lost season for him this year with the injuries. He tried to come back too soon against Georgia. First possession, went down, got a touchdown, got hurt, and essentially missed the entire year. It came out today that Texas and Tennessee are kind of looking at him. Where do you want to see him go?
I actually think this is a gigantic move for him. I mean, he got banged up, like you said, last year, got hurt. We thought he was going to be a stud for South Carolina. And he should have been. But if he goes like Texas, I mean, the amount of looks and everything else is going to happen with him being on Texas is going to be amazing. So if you have Juice Wells and C2C, you're loving it. You're loving it because he's going to go to a place like Texas and crush. I think he's actually going to be in a way better place than he was last 2 years. I know he was the best guy at South Carolina and he played his balls off, but like he's going to be in a better place this year. And everyone in the country is going to know how good he is this year.
SC? You're on mute, SC.
Yeah, my bad. I think Texas would be phenomenal for him. I think with John Shea Cook there as well, you're gonna have him go in there and kind of play that Wardy role to Cook just being more of your possession wide receiver there. I think that's nice for him if he is able to go there, especially if he has someone like Quinn Ewers there. You just get a veteran wide receiver, kind of how Adonai Mitchell just came in there. Tennessee would be great though too because they do need someone like him for Nico Lamivea. They didn't have any other wide receivers step up to me, and it kind of just hurt that offense because I am a fan of Joe Milton. I think Joe Milton has a great arm. I think he can execute and put it on the money. I saw him put it on the money, and the wide receivers dropped it. Right. So either of those teams really look nice. I think he could get better publicity if he's at Texas, just because if they go to the SEC, they have a nice defense. They know how to rock it. Tennessee has a good defense, but I think right now Texas has the better one. I think for him, as far as like business decision draft wise, I think you go to Texas because you're going to get a better opportunity there as far as the quarterback play. Where in Tennessee, I love Lico Mavia, but I just don't see that offense the same as it was with Hendon Hooker. He could be that difference maker, try to stretch the field, but I don't necessarily see that.
Yeah, I do agree with Juice Wells. If he were to go to Texas, he'd have Quinn Ewers throwing it to him. He'd have an NFL ready quarterback throwing it to him. I think that's going to help his stock. And at the same time, he can mentor Jonte Cook and the incoming freshman sensation Ryan Wingo. Three guys that I want to mention real briefly at the wide receiver position. Will Shepard, he is a speedy guy, good route runner for Vanderbilt. He entered the portal. He's someone that is interested to see where he goes. Dion Burks, he's a pure yak guy. He's a very exciting to watch. Reportedly, he has offers from USC, Washington, Oregon, Texas, and Miami. And then finally, I want to mention Cullen Lacey for South Alabama. He really has blossomed this year, and he has a 3-day visit with Texas A&M. With Texas A&M, we're expecting a mass exodus. We haven't seen it yet, but if he has a 3-day visit lined up, he might be a key factor for them next year. Now, we'll go with SC first, and then Justin can fill in here. We're going to talk IDP. Now, I don't have a slightest idea about IDP guys. I don't know any of these guys. Now, the first guy on here is a guy from Pittsburgh who was at Pittsburgh. When I think of Pittsburgh, I think of Aaron Donald. SC, Samuel Okalola. Is he someone that should be on people's radar?
Yeah, man, he's a freshman that came out on fire. Had showed he can bring pressure to the quarterback. Had 5 sacks on the season, 18 total tackles there. He's someone that just showed some dominance, and it's like, okay, now I want to see more. Now I want to see him get on the field every game. Now I want to see what he can do with the proper coaching, with the right defensive system. Reports are that Florida State has made him an offer. They're losing Jared Verse. They're going to come out here and get Samuel Okunlola now, possibly, and that just really shows the aggressiveness in Florida State. I mean, all these coaches that don't take action in the transfer portal when you have some big time guys at that freshman year, your Dante Moores, your Samuel Okunlolas that are freshmen that still have time to develop, you're missing out. Don't get me wrong, you still want to go after those high school prospects, but that's a big move because you get a guy that gets some college experience here. You get a guy that you've seen produce at the college level, and now he's yours for possibly the next couple of years. I mean, they can enter the transfer portal again, all that kind of stuff, but that's a big move, especially losing someone like Jared Verse to the draft this year.
Justin?
Yeah, I agree. IDP is so tough. It's like you never know until guys get really drafted at their spot. Like Verse, love him. I mean, absolutely love that guy. But you just don't know where he's going to draft it. You don't know where his spot is. So that's always the tough thing with IDP. Me and SC, we always talk about it. We love guys here, there, but it's always fluent with IDP. It's always that way. So it's always tough. I'd like a lot of these guys defensively, but you just never know until it gets right to the nitty gritty of the guys that are going to be serious of like who you think is going to hit right away. Because again, defensively, not a lot of guys hit right away. So if you're drafting guys, as I am in a lot of uh, dynasty leagues, I'm drafting those guys and I'm just stashing them. I'm stashing a ton of those defensive guys because chances of them hitting right away are slim to none. But if you can put them in your taxi or you can stash them, they're going to crush eventually. That's the way you need to do it.
And then we also have a safety, Jalen Catalan. SC is what is he about?
He's a nice safety out of Texas, and really he's entering the transfer portal because he's a senior and he just had a bad season in Texas. He wants to go out there and get that fresh start to raise up his draft stock and show he can be a dominant one. He had 15 solo tackles this year. He wants to go out there and show he could be one of those pure tacklers at the safety position. That's something you really want, and just show that he can get across the field. He really missed that this year, and Texas secondary was not their strong suit, and because of that, I think he's like, yo, I can't go in the draft this year. There's no way. I need to go back another year, go to a different team, get a clean slate here, and just show I can be one of the top safeties.
Justin, if I'm in an IDP league and I see a senior safety from Texas transfer out, should I be worried?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want a guy that I don't think is going to be drafted high. And if I'm in IDP, I want a guy that's like a first round pick, second round pick early, or what I'm looking for is a guy that's sliding through as like a fifth, sixth round pick, but is like gonna play. Like somebody who's like, oh, he's a fifth, sixth round pick. It's late as can be, but they're gonna slide in because of the situation. So there's a lot of times that happens where guys are like, uh, there's like their fifth, sixth round picks, but they're gonna get a chance. I would rather take one of those guys real late and take a chance on them.
Okay. And then we just talked about Vanderbilt having a mass exodus. We have a corner here, Savion Riley. SC is what's he about?
Yeah, I like him too. I mean, this is another guy that we're going to talk about as, a freshman. I think he has big time potential. He only allowed 2 touchdowns on the season, 150 yards, but he had 48 total tackles, 34 of those being solo. So just showed his lockdown skills really. And he's someone that there's some heavy hitters losing some of their defensive backs to the draft that he can go and get that proper development. You think about like your Georgias, you think about maybe your Alabama's. They could really use him because he shows that he can match up against the wide receivers. He's not getting beaten down the field. He's not necessarily losing at the line of scrimmage either. So he's physical, but he can also make the big plays for you if you need to. And if the wide receiver catches the ball on him, he's right on top of them to get that tackle. So he shows all the fundamentals I like in one of your young defensive back prospects. It will take for him to go to a big time school just to say, okay, let's put him on the national television so everyone knows about him.
Now, there was a lot of times where I was watching Clemson early on in the year for Antonio Williams with all of my shares before they sank. When Clemson was on defense, there was a guy, David Oljeby. Uh, does he still have Power Five aspirations, SC?
Yeah, I mean, right now he entered that transfer portal. He's a former 4-star prospect. He's a defensive guy that led his high school team basically to the state championship. He had 16 sacks that season in his senior year. Came to Clemson, just didn't get the opportunity that he necessarily wanted. And I think that's something that really hurt them. And they're losing one of their top guys that can bring that pressure. And to me, I feel Clemson, we're going to see them soon, where it's just like this is they're gonna lose a lot of people. I said before the show to just you, Andy, that maybe we just see Cade Klubnik stay there because they know you're our guy. We love you, Cade, right? So he's either gonna stay there where everyone else may leave, and we see it with Ojieba here that he's a dominant threat on the edge. He can get around, get to the quarterback. I think it was just a lack of utilization that we didn't see what we want to see from him, but I feel he still has it. He just needs to go to the team that knows how to use him. Sometimes you get some of these top prospects that for whatever reason they get on the bad side of the coach and they just say, okay, well, we're just not going to give you that time that you deserve or that you should be on the field because you are a difference maker. I think he can be a difference maker for a team. He just needs to see the field, and that just has to have a coach go out there and coach him correctly to say this is the next level, this is where we're at, because he has the fundamentals you want in a nice defensive edge.
And those are four guys that have entered the portal that, if you do play IDP, those are guys that you should be looking at. Now, Justin, where can people find you on X and what are you currently working on?
You can find me at JT Orange at X. Talk about literally any kind of fantasy football, do a little bit of everything. I play every league, so ask me a question, hit me up no matter what. You can find me every Wednesday. Fan Tracks, I do an IDP waiver wire article, and then I'm on DLF. I do our rankings of like DLF players if you want to do IDP. So if you're an IDP guy, get in, talk to me. If you're not, I totally understand. I know a lot of my friends are not IDP guys. It's totally fine. But if you want to do that, jump in. But I'll talk about anything else fancy no matter what.
I see.
Yeah, man. And on me, find me on X at the PPR show. Got my Jajarn Newton article, IDDP article coming out tomorrow for Dynasty Pros. Andy, shout out to you with that QB Portal Talk article that came out today. Fantastic article there on Dynasty Pros. I have my IDP Start Sit articles coming out for the NFL on Thursdays on RPO Football. And I'm going to be breaking down some of the bowl games for league winners as well. And then I got some guys that we're working on the IDP only draft for this next upcoming class. So stay tuned for that. Big news. I got some heavy hitters doing a mock draft with me.
Should be really fun. And you can find me at Andy_Fam1 doing 3 articles a week. Every Thursday, we're going to drop you a 2024 draft eligible player, get you ready for your rookie drafts. And then Fridays, probably next month, beginning of the year, we'll do a future freshman Friday edition and get you ready for those C2C sub drafts that are going to take place in the summer. And then every Monday for now until the portal closes, I'll do something with the portal. But you can find me at Andy_fam1, 3 articles a week. And then for everyone watching on YouTube, if you can hit the like button, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple, give us a rate and review. And until next time, have a good one.